Welcome into the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Monday, August 12. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we are back at it with a lot to cover today. I'm excited about today's show. But first, I want to ask you guys to hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits page, but I also got an offer for you right now. On3 is available for $1. Have you been considering joining? Have you been on the fence? Well, now is the time because On3 is just $1. All you got to do is use promo code FONG1, and this exclusive deal is for Wiltfong Whip Around viewers. Now, remember, this channel always going to be free, but On3, if you want to sign up, step your game up, get ready for the season, and join for just $1. Use promo code FONG1 for that. All right, let's bring on my guy, Steve Wiltfong, and it is decision week for the number one offensive tackle in America, David Sanders Jr. Man, we've been covering this recruitment for months, and on Friday, you made some waves. Tell the people about your latest prediction.
Well, I logged in On3 RPM for Tennessee to land 5-star plus offensive tackle David Sanders Jr. He took 5 visits to Knoxville this calendar year. Tennessee got the last visit at the end of July. He is really connected with George McIntyre in this Tennessee recruiting class, has spent a lot of time around the players, enjoys being around Josh Heupel and the coaching staff, believes in Coach Glenn Ellerby's track record of player development. Tennessee has poured a lot of resources into this recruitment for David Sanders Jr., and I like the way it's all lining up for the Vols going into his decision on Saturday.
Yeah, and I like the way that their offensive class is lining up. What do you think Tennessee's doing in 2025? I mean, they are really stepping on the gas when it comes to recruiting this cycle.
Well, this program is obviously doing a fantastic job recruiting. When you look at quarterback George McIntyre and offensive tackle David Sanders Jr., those two, along with Bryce Underwood, are 3 of the most coveted players in the country. When you look at it through the lens of the college coaches, George McIntyre and Bryce Underwood had all the same scholarship offers, and it was first come, first serve for both of them. And Tennessee beats out LSU, Alabama, and others to land George McIntyre. Now they're the program trending for David Sanders Jr. So this program is a well-oiled machine on the recruiting trail. The coaching staff from top to bottom to the off-field guys are doing a great job of building relationships. And then again, I think that Tennessee is getting a lot of backing on the recruiting trail too from an infrastructure standpoint. So all the stars are aligning for Tennessee to have another really good recruiting class. They sit at number 9 in the On3 industry standings right now. They're very much pushing for the top 5. Now, David Sanders, this is a recruitment where I've liked Tennessee's position for quite some time, but there was a window here in the spring, early summer where I thought Ohio State was really giving them a challenge on the trail. But as the intel continues to come in leading into his commitment this weekend, really like where Tennessee stands. They have a fantastic receiver class in the fold. They have arguably the best tight end class in the country with Brame and Van Dorselaer from Texas. And now they have a chance to add David Sanders alongside Douglas Utu, which would be a hellacious offensive line combo here in the 2025 class, as Utu was as coveted an interior offensive line prospect as there was in the land. He chose Tennessee over Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, and many others.
So Tennessee, as you said, Tennessee sits number 9 currently. We think when David Sanders commits on Saturday, if he picks Tennessee, that'll move them maybe right outside the top 5. We know Tennessee's not done. What do they still need to add, even if they get David Sanders, before this class is complete?
Well, they're looking strong for another commitment here in the month of August from four-star cornerback Onis Konembani. He's going to come off the board on August 23rd. I'm one of several On3 RPM predictions in favor of the Vols. I think Tennessee would like to add another running back, so we'll see who they decide to continue to push for. Maybe it's a senior eval. Maybe they look to flip somebody. I think that's the same case for linebacker, Josh. I think that they would like to add another linebacker to what's already in the fold as well.
All right, Tennessee fans, tap in. Talk with me and Steve. How do you feel about this class? We are less than a week away from David Sanders. Are you confident there? Probably should be now that Steve put that pick in. Anyway, let us know, comment section below. All right, Steve, let's move on to another 5-star offensive tackle, this time Andrew Babalola. He's out of Kansas, and he's been telling On3 that in the past he wants to commit by August 12th. Well, Steve, as we tape this, it's August 12th, so the clock is ticking. What's going on? What's the latest? And is the confidence around Michigan getting louder?
I'm not expecting a commitment. I think that Andrew Babalola is still struggling to make a final decision because he could see himself at so many places. Yes, I think Michigan is one of those schools, and the dialogue remains strong. And I think Michigan's done a really good job of recruiting Andrew and his family and showing them that it's the best of both worlds on the football field, where they're defending national championships, and in the classroom where they have such a outstanding alumni base and what it means to be a Michigan man. But there are a lot of schools that are feeling good about where they stand with Andrew Babalola right now. Stanford is one of those programs that's been a mainstay at the top of his list. They got 2 offensive line coaches at Stanford. They have that prestigious degree. They have a lot going for them in this recruitment. Auburn's having regular dialogue. I'm not sure there's a coaching staff that is closer to Andrew Babalola than the guys down there on the plains at Auburn. He continues to talk regularly with Bill Bedenbaugh and the Oklahoma Sooners. He's talking to the Oklahoma players. So they're in the middle of it. And then Mizzou, you never count Mizzou out in this cycle on the trail. If they've gone toe-to-toe and won some heavyweight recruiting battles, Matt Zoller's certainly one of those in particular, but the Tigers trending for a really strong class as well, coming off an 11-win season themselves. So I think even though he wanted to commit in July, then he wanted to commit before his senior season, I think he's still working through his processes. These programs give him a lot to think about.
Who do you think this helps the longer this goes? Is there a program?
Well, I think they're in the middle of it. I don't know. Certainly the longer it goes, I don't know how well that bodes for Stanford, who led coming into the official visits. I think that was kind of the consensus opinion. But Michigan, Auburn, Oklahoma, right there in the middle of it. I don't hear as much about Missouri as I do the others, but I do know he continues to have dialogue with them. But there seems to be some confidence around the Plains. Michigan, folks around Ann Arbor felt good for a while. And then Oklahoma's just been lying in the weeds.
All right, there's another offensive tackle out there that's a 5-star that has a date set. Unlike Babalola, Michael Fasusi knows when he's going to decide. It's going to be August 21. There's a lot of buzz around Oklahoma. Steve, what's the latest on 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi?
Yeah, as you continue to talk sources around the recruitment of Michael Fasusi, Oklahoma is a program that remains hot and steady. We talked about Bill Bedenbaugh in the Andrew Babalola portion of the show, but it applies to Michael Fasusi. He's arguably the best offensive line coach in the country, has a track record of player development, has as many guys on the offensive line in the NFL as any college coach in the country right now. And that means something to Michael Fasusi, who has great ambition as an offensive lineman. I think Oklahoma has poured a lot into this recruitment. It has put them in great position here for Michael Fasusi down the stretch, but you cannot sleep on Texas or Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is real vested in this recruitment. The Adam Cushing offensive line coach has spent a lot of time talking to Michael Fasusi as of late about the way he could develop him, and he is very important to Texas A&M trying to get on track here in year one of the Mike Elko era. And then Texas, the way that they've recruited offensive line under Steve Sarkisian year in and year out, they've done a fantastic job of closing top targets each and every cycle. You can't rule them out for Michael Fasusi as well. In fact, they're the on 3 RPM favorite, but Oklahoma and Texas A&M doing a good job giving chase.
Let's talk about Georgia Tech recruiting because they are currently a top 25 team. Yes, Brent Key and the Yellow Jackets currently sit on 22 commitments, and they are inside that top 25 after beating FSU, beating Ohio State, beating Tennessee for offensive lineman Josh Petty. The 5-star is now a Yellow Jacket. Steve, what is cooking in Atlanta?
Stanford was another program that really wanted to land on 3 industry 5-star Josh Petty, but Brent Key, Georgia Tech, this staff, they have a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail right now. Going back to 2017, that's as far back as the On3 industry recruiting rankings go. Georgia Tech has never finished higher than 27. They typically finish in that 40, 50, 60 range. But right now, there's a lot of energy coming around this program, coming off an exciting season they had this past year. There's a lot of expectations on Georgia Tech football this year. And I use the word resources and infrastructure a lot. I think that Georgia Tech is doing a very good job in those arenas as well, and it's allowing them to land guys like Josh Petty. These are very competitive recruitments. Ohio State was a program that tried to make a couple late pushes for Josh Petty, but playing for home, playing for an offensive line guy, feeling at home, playing for a program that's on the rise in the state. I think Georgia Tech was able to secure a pledge for Josh Petty because of those reasons.
And now another major development with Georgia Tech recruiting that went down on Sunday night. Bogart, Georgia defensive lineman, a 4-star prospect, Christian Garrett, backed off his commitment to the Georgia Bulldogs. And within an hour of him doing that, Steve, you jumped into the recruiting prediction machine and put a pick in for Georgia Tech. And the Yellow Jackets are now trending for another on 300 prospect. What's going on here?
Yeah, prior to our buddy Hayes Fawcett announcing that decommitment on 3, heard rumblings that it was in the works and going to happen. Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Stanford were 3 programs I heard right away that he has interest in, but the buzz is around Georgia Tech. This is a top 100 recruit when you look at just the on-3 player rankings. Charles Power, Cody Belair and company, very high on Christian Garrett, and so is this Georgia Tech coaching staff. They never stopped recruiting him after he committed to Georgia, and I think it's going to pay off for them as this process continues.
All right. Do you think there's a chance that Tennessee gets back involved in this one? I know that they've kind of loaded up since Christian Garrett decided on committing to Georgia originally, but do you think that the Vols could get back in this one?
There's going to be a lot of twists and turns with a lot of prospects as this 2025 cycle continues going into the season, and people are watching senior years, assessing their needs, who may go in the portal, who may go in the NFL draft. But right now, I like where Georgia Tech stands here. They were one of 3 finalists alongside the Vols. They may have finished number 2 anyways, and they look like they're number 1 right now.
All right. Is Georgia going to be okay on the defensive line?
Absolutely. And when is Georgia not okay on the defensive line? They have a lot of talent on that roster right now. When you look at who they're in on moving forward, you got 5 stars, Elijah Griffin and Justice Terry. I really love where they stand with Elijah Griffin. I think he takes his official visit during the fall. Maybe they lock that down during his official when he takes in a game during the season. Then Justice Terry, I like Georgia there a lot. Now, he's certainly proved that he could commit elsewhere, committing to USC at one point in the spring. So perhaps he could end up elsewhere, but I like where Georgia stands with him as well.
All right. Now, let's stay on the defensive line and talk Iose Epenesa. This one was trending in Utah's direction. Also, Miami was heavily involved. There's been some picks for the Canes, but now you're hearing another Big Ten teams jumped in the mix here.
Yeah, and Penn State's been a dark horse too for Iose Epenesa with the way their style of play. A lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of sacks. That coaching staff quickly connected with Epenesa and his family. He had a great official visit there the last weekend of May, first weekend of June. They bled in together. But Iowa is a program, he was a legacy recruit. You know, his dad played at Iowa, his 2 older brothers play for or played at Iowa. AJ's obviously with the Buffalo Bills. His brother Eric is a linebacker in Iowa City right now. And as he's trying to make a college decision before his senior season, a lot of love for Utah, a lot of love for Miami, a lot of family friends, a lot of actual family on those coaching staffs. As he continues to talk with his family about what's important to him, Iowa is moving back into the forefront of this discussion. A young man that originally was all set on setting his own trail somewhere else, seeing why the family loves Iowa so much. And he's always understood it, but now it's time for him to make his own decision. I think Iowa is right there in the middle of it as he continues to work through his process. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see another Epenesa suited up for Iowa down the road. But Miami, Utah, Penn State remain contenders as well.
All right, let's swing down to the state of Florida, talk a little in-state recruiting. The Florida Gators, it's setting up nicely this summer for them and legacy recruits. Already, they racked up Vernell Brown, a top 25 player at his position, and now on 300 quarterback and legacy recruit Ben Hanks Jr., 4-star DB out of Miami, Florida, is going to announce on Thursday. Miami, Louisville have been also involved here, but it seems like the Gators are surging late.
Yeah, I like where Florida stands here. Now, an interesting component is twin sister is a volleyball player, and they want to go to school together. They're twins, and she's a someone that's garnering some interest from these programs. So whoever maybe comes through in that regard, maybe it catapults them into the lead. But I know they've had good conversation with Florida about his sister playing volleyball there, and then he loves being at Florida, loves being around that coaching staff, loves being inside the swamp. He's played in the swamp. His dad played in the swamp. And the SEC is another important component to this decision, playing in that conference, what it could potentially do for him. I think Florida has the edge here. Sources indicate that is true. But Louisville is a program trying to change that right now, led by John Herron, who played with his dad. He's known his dad for 30 years. I think Miami is kind of like, let's just play the season out. Let's have a good year. Let's continue working on getting the sister in the volleyball program and then see where things fall later. But as of right now, I like the way it's shaping up for Florida. And Florida's also excited to play this season, Josh. We've talked about it a lot. Florida, Miami, they open the year against each other. But Florida, they're in on a couple blue chippers here down the stretch, but they look forward to coming back around on some guys that they lost on with a great year as well.
All right. Well, how about on 300 safety Bryce Fitzgerald? He's going to commit this Saturday. Florida State, LSU, Florida, and Miami are the finalists. Which direction do you think this one's headed?
Well, there's been some recent LSU buzz about the Tigers being in good position as they build on a number 3 ranked recruiting class. Florida State's always been in the middle of this one, but there is some people around Coral Gables that feel good about Miami's position. Florida also battling. So this one's going to be one of the more exciting ones. This is one of the more quiet kids in the class. If you're asking me who I think it might be, I get the sense that there's some confidence around Miami, but nothing would surprise me going into his announcement.
All right, let's talk Ole Miss, because one of their top targets on 300 running back Shakai Mills-Knight will announce his commitment this Saturday. And you got things trending for the Rebels. Tell us about what they are looking to land in Shakai Mills-Knight.
Yeah, my prediction joins Chad Simmons and several of our colleagues at On 3. Shakai Mills-Knight is one of the more physically impressive running backs in this class. He's got day one capabilities because of that. Ole Miss was one of the first programs to get on him, offer him a scholarship, and ratchet it up. And I think that means a lot to him in his recruitment down the stretch. But don't sleep on Auburn, Josh. Auburn is in the thick of this one with a week to go. They're trying to change the tune of Ole Miss being the favorite. Auburn is the number 6 class in the country, working to flip Deuce Knight, working to land Andrew Babalola, looking to land Shakai Mills-Knight on Saturday. Can they flip Naeem Offord? Auburn is a program that is looking to push into that top 3, and Shakai Mills-Knight is one of those guys that they're going hard at right now.
All right, Steve. Well, we can't have a Wiltfong whip around without talking a little quarterback talk, because on last week's show on Thursday, the show was all about quarterbacks potentially flipping. There's a lot of rumors going on. So let's just hit on 3. Deuce Knight, Huson Longstreet, and Julian Lewis. Now, maybe nothing's changed, but just coming out of the weekend, what is going on? Let's start with Deuce Knight.
Yeah, my on 3 RPM is on Auburn for Deuce Knight. I think as I talked to you today, that's where I ultimately see him still landing, but Ole Miss is still in there for the Notre Dame quarterback commit and the Fighting Irish, hoping he takes it into the season, looking to get off to a fast start against Texas A&M on the road in prime time and go from there. But I think he wants to play in the SEC. I give the edge to Auburn over Ole Miss right now. Julian Lewis has long been committed to USC. I think that Lincoln Riley and company are working to try and get him to shut down his process and 100% lock in with the Trojans. If they do that, they will stop flirting with Huson Longstreet. Talked with Huson Longstreet's family last week. They have had some exciting dialogue with USC, certainly sees why it's an exciting place to go play quarterback. It's close to home, but I still like where Texas A&M stands with Huson Longstreet right now. They're saying all the right things. His dad told me it's going to be a tough flip. So we'll see what happens, though, if USC really has to turn it up for Huson Longstreet. Right now, I think they're trying to shut things down with Julian Lewis.
I don't get the feeling, today's August 12th. We're a couple of days away from the high school season starting. I don't get the feeling that we're going to get any word from Julian Lewis on whether or not, he's solid and do you think he should, or do you think that, hey, he has all the leverage here and we know he wants to watch USC into the season. So why come out and say anything anyway?
Well, it's a crucial week, I think. I don't know if he has all the leverage anymore. If USC can get in on another quarterback, if he truly wants to go to USC, he risks
Yeah.
them going another way. And if it's not Husan Longstreet, we know Lincoln Riley is going to have an opportunity to flip somebody that's really good at the quarterback position. So I think that at some point USC is really going to say, all right, well, if you're not locking in, perhaps we're moving on, because there will not be the line could be long of quarterbacks that want to play for Lincoln Riley is what I'm trying to enunciate for you. You know, he doesn't have to recruit many quarterbacks each cycle. So he pivoted from Brock Vandegrift to Caleb Williams pretty smoothly one cycle. You know, obviously that was at a different timeline in recruiting, but we know USC's got a lot of resources. We know what Lincoln Riley's done with quarterbacks. So I think that we're to a point now where it's time for Julian Lewis to make his final decision on USC, or we could see the Trojans really ramp it up elsewhere. They're flirting right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ramped it up elsewhere if they didn't get some finality from Julian Lewis.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to see how that shakes out. One more follow-up on Deuce Knight. You know, not talking about you, but, you know, I did do a couple videos last week with Jeffrey Lee out of Auburn Live, and there was some sense, some smoke, some rumors that Deuce Knight might flip at some point over the weekend. The weekend came and passed. I know you still have your pick in, but is that significant at all that Notre Dame was able to hold on to Deuce Knight through the weekend, or is it still kind of imminent?
A lot of people putting dates out there. Talking to Deuce Knight's dad, Justin Knight, I did not get the sense that there was going to be an announcement as early as maybe some projected. Mm-hmm. So we will see how it goes going into September, if it gets to September. Right. But right now, I still like where Auburn sits. Ole Miss is the dark horse, and Notre Dame battling to hang on here. But if you're Notre Dame, again, we talked about it on the last whip around. You know, you love Deuce Knight for what he brings to your room and the way he can compete in South Bend, and he brings a skill set that they don't have on the roster. They've kind of put a standard in that room with the way they've recruited the position, from Kenny Minchie to CJ Carr to what they hope is Deuce Knight. But CJ Carr, the returns around him are that he's the real deal. You expect him to at least be a 2-year starter before going potentially pro. And then, you know, they got a good quarterback committed there in the 2026 class as well.
All right. Well, guys, tap in with us. Let us know, how do you guys think these quarterback dominoes are going to fall? Does Deuce Knight flip? What about Longstreet and Julian Lewis? And if those guys at the top make a move, we know the QB dominoes will be affected all the way on down. So let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, another great episode of the Wiltfong Whip Around. I had a blast.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday for the next episode of Wiltfong Whip Around. Please hit like and subscribe so you're up to date on the latest content from Inside Scoop, 5-Star Flex, Wiltfong Whip Around, some of the biggest announcements from some of the top high school football prospects in the country, where they're going to school, and everything in between. We will see you on Thursday.